Lana Redding wasn't just an influencer. She was the embodiment of a movement that had gained traction in recent years, a symbol of the fight against oppressive beauty standards that, according to her, had been created to shrink bodies and silence voices. On her social media, Lana promoted messages that became her motto, "My body." She encouraged her followers to reject any notion that health or weight should be topics of public debate. In the United States and England, her videos were hailed as acts of cultural resistance. To her, the concept of traditional beauty was a weapon forged by patriarchy and capitalism to subjugate non-conforming bodies. Every selfie, every dancing video, and every post with hashtags like body acceptance or freedom to be was a declaration of war against centuries of social norms. But Lana was also a controversial figure. While many celebrated her as the voice of a new generation, others criticized her fiercely. Among the supportive comments, engagement was at its peak. Her partnerships with inclusive clothing brands, indulgent foods. She was living proof that a body could defy all expectations and still be admired. She was perfect in her imperfection. That's when the problems began. Lana noticed something different. It wasn't just the pounds she seemed to gain without explanation. It was the tone of the comments that had changed. They had become stranger, almost obsessive. It was no longer just about acceptance, but about veneration. "You're a monument. You represent us. Keep growing, queen." Lana had achieved everything she'd ever wanted: visibility, admiration, an entire movement behind her message. But deep down, something unsettled her. Maybe because she was beginning to realize that her freedom didn't feel so free. She no longer knew if she was the voice of the movement or just a puppet in something much bigger. It was too late to realize that her body, her rules, had never really been hers. Lana Redding was more than an influencer. She was a symbol of resistance against oppressive standards. With every post, Lana embraced progressive and woke concepts, challenging what she called the tyranny of thinness. But as she gained visibility, the consequences of her message began manifesting in ways she never expected. When the weight gain started, Lana chose to frame the situation as a new opportunity for empowerment. "My body is changing, and that's beautiful too," she would say during her live streams. Comments like, "You give us the courage to not fear the scale," flooded her platforms. Plus-size clothing brands hired her for million-dollar campaigns, and media platforms amplified her voice as the new face of radical body acceptance. But as her weight increased uncontrollably, Lana noticed something strange about how her audience reacted. Whenever she mentioned concerns about her health or considered seeking help, the comments turned against her. "Don't betray the movement. Accept who you are. Health is capitalist oppression." She began to feel trapped by the narrative she had created. Her activism for freedom of choice and against limiting standards now felt like a prison from which she couldn't escape. Meanwhile, the physical changes became increasingly intense. Lana experienced hunger on levels she had never known. It was an overwhelming need, impossible to satiate. She started hiding food around her apartment, as if unconsciously aware she might need it. At night, she woke up drenched in sweat with the sensation of something crawling under her skin. The echo of distant voices seemed to fill the silence. "Eat, live your freedom, show them what power looks like." But hunger wasn't the only problem. Lana began to notice a disturbing pattern in her videos. The algorithm seemed to push her posts, amplifying the reach of content where she appeared eating compulsively or highlighting her body, which now approached 220 pounds. The interactions were massive, but every comment, no matter how flattering it seemed, carried an unsettling undertone. "You're perfect like this. Keep growing, queen." The story leaked and became a social media scandal. Lana felt that the more she tried to escape, the deeper she was pulled into the character she had created. Then came the dreams. In every one of them, Lana was seated at an endless banquet, surrounded by faceless figures who applauded as she ate. "You gave us life," they said. "Now we're part of you." She woke up with the feeling that something was inside her, something that wasn't just food. One day, Lana received an unexpected package. It was a box with no return address, containing only a tablet. When she turned it on, a video started playing. It showed her sitting in the dark, monstrously large, devouring something that seemed alive and pulsating. In the corner of the video, a phrase written in red read, "You wanted freedom, now it owns you." Lana threw the tablet across the room, but the hunger came back even fiercer that night. The sensation was clear. Something was devouring her from the inside out, but at the same time, she was complicit, as if every bite, every post, and every interaction brought her closer to what she feared becoming. That night, as Lana watched the recorded video of herself, it felt as though the world around her was crumbling. For years, she had built her career on a narrative of inclusion and acceptance, but now it seemed to be twisted by something much larger than she could have imagined. Determined to understand what was happening, Lana sought answers in the depths of online forums and in the comments on her posts. At the same time, she noticed something strange. Her relentless hunger was accompanied by an overwhelming sense of guilt, as if every calorie consumed was feeding not just her body, but an invisible entity. Something or someone was exploiting her beliefs. The comments were chilling. "You're our leader. Never stop eating, never stop growing. The movement is hungry, Lana. You are the food. We're all eating with you." It's beautiful. At first, she thought they were just trolls, but something about the tone seemed sincere, almost reverential. Her followers were turning her words into a cult. The ideology she had passionately promoted was no longer a message of acceptance. It had become a dogma, a virus replicating through digital worship. Behind the scenes, Lana began to realize her platform was not as hers as she had believed. The brands that sponsored her, once focused on diversity, were now pressuring her to post more videos, glorifying her uncontrolled weight gain. "Be authentic," the emails said. "Show what it means to live without shame." The irony was suffocating. She no longer controlled her own narrative. "They're feeding you to feed the system?" Confused, she replied, asking for explanations. The response was a link to a cryptic video, apparently recorded by another influencer who, like her, had promoted inclusive ideologies but had mysteriously disappeared. In the video, the man, visibly sick and deformed, spoke with a desperate gaze. "They turn our struggle into fuel. Our message was about freedom, but now we are prisoners." Every click, every like, feeds something bigger, something that thrives on polarization, on hate disguised as love. You are. Perfection isn't a physical state, it's a state of control. It was as if the very movement she had helped create had taken on a life of its own and was now controlling her. The next morning, Lana woke up to a strange noise coming from the living room. As she descended the stairs, she found stacks of food boxes she had never ordered. Each box bore the logo of one of the brands that sponsored her. At the bottom of every box was a note, "Keep posting. The movement depends on you." When she tried calling the company to cancel the deliveries, her call was redirected to an automated recording. "Lana, you don't understand. You are the movement. Your image is our message. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything." By this point, Lana's hunger had become insatiable. She tried to resist, but something inside her seemed to grow stronger with every bite. Her hands seemed broader, her skin unnaturally elastic, and her eyes always sunken, as though her energy was being drained directly from her soul. Then she received a phone call. "A purpose. Now we feed on you." The call ended, but a notification appeared on her phone. It was a live stream from her Instagram account. What she saw made her stomach churn. The caption read, "Our queen is leading us to a new tomorrow. All bodies are beautiful. Consume, grow, be free." She tried to disable the live stream, but the screen went black. The whispered voice echoed once more. "You wanted to change the world, Lana, and you did. Now accept the weight of perfection." At that moment, Lana realized the terrifying truth. Her movement, her ideology, had been hijacked, turned into something that promoted submission under the illusion of freedom. The acceptance she had preached so fervently was no longer about inclusion. She collapsed to the floor, feeling her body vibrate as the hunger grew, now impossible to control. In the mirror, her reflection seemed to smile, but she knew it wasn't her. But her impact wasn't forgotten. In fact, her absence only seemed to amplify her relevance. Campaigns sprang up in her name, with influencers and brands using her image to sell clothes, food, and even self-acceptance courses. An independent documentary was released, portraying Lana as a martyr of the woke movement. In it, friends, family reported bizarre sightings. They spoke of a grotesque figure, almost inhuman, wandering the streets at night. It was a massive creature, covered in stretched skin and pulsating veins, with eyes that glowed like phone screens in the dark. A mask that seemed made up of all the photos and videos of people who had once claimed to be inspired by her. Faces, hands, and eyes surfaced and disappeared in her skin, as if they were living memories. She moved slowly, dragging herself through alleys, and her voice was a constant whisper. She was no longer just Lana, she had become a collective entity. "You don't understand," she murmured to the young activist, her voice reverberating as if thousands of people were speaking together. The creature grew as more people discussed, posted, and reacted to campaigns related to her. The more she was exalted, the more corporeal and immense she became. In the end, the entity disappeared for good. Or perhaps it merely hid where no one could find it. The rumors, however, never faded. Some said that those who obsessively watched Lana's old videos began to feel something strange, an insatiable hunger, a growing anxiety that drove them to consume more and more content related to the inclusive movement, as if they were being prepared for something greater. The truth was grim. Lana was no longer a person. She was an endless cycle of consumption, acceptance, and destruction. In the end, the weight of perfection wasn't just on Lana's body, it was in the souls of everyone who had fed the system without realizing it. And though she had disappeared, the hunger remained.